On a spacious office desk, there's a purple book with a delicately decorated cover. Sunlight streams through the window, making the book's appearance even sharper. A hand wearing black gloves touches the book, caressing it. Once, a great philosopher said, "Every death is the beginning of a new life." Now that I think about it, it seems quite reasonable. This unknown man is currently in a luxurious room. He's sitting in a spacious chair, with his coat draped behind it. He picks up the purple book from the table and introduces himself. "My name is Moon, and my full name is Moon Campbell. This is my current name." At that moment, the sunlight streaming through the window reveals the man called Moon. He has blonde hair and a pair of blue eyes. Moon continues to describe the special nature of his identity. "That's right, I'm a traveler, and my mode of travel explains why I've become a young, blonde, and handsome man. It all started with an unexpected event in my past life. At dusk, a kitten wandered onto a busy road, and unfortunately, a truck was coming its way. A girl wearing a school uniform saw this scene and immediately ran from the sidewalk, throwing herself at the kitten. The girl hugged the kitten tightly, kneeling on the ground and staring at the enormous truck in front of her, shocked and unreacting. However, the protagonist of this scene is a girl. What does this have to do with Moon? In the middle of the story, Moon suddenly steps out of frame. He tilts his head and looks forward, as if wondering if the audience has any questions about the description of the scene above. Why is the person mentioned above a girl? Returning to the previous scene, the truck crashed into an earthen wall beside the road, and due to the violent impact, it exploded into flames, engulfing the entire vehicle. Inside the burning truck, the driver's head was bleeding profusely from severe injuries. Obviously, he must have lost consciousness and was slumped over the steering wheel, his body surrounded by fire. That's right, this blonde-haired man in the blue work uniform is my past life. This is me, the truck driver who swerved and crashed into a wall to die in order to save a kitten. That's me. Thus, the soul of my past life crossed over from the real world to a world of light novels. So, I arrived in a world of light novels that I read before my death, a magical world made of swords and magic, the continent of Matthias. Now, before us, there is a very magnificent castle. This castle is imposing, and its decoration is extremely luxurious. It belongs to Duke Campbell, unlike the middle-aged corporate slave who worked tirelessly every day to survive in my past life. Now, I am the only son of one of the 4 dukes of the empire, the Lionheart Grand Duke Campbell. Inside the castle, a blonde woman wearing a black negligee decorated with lace around the neckline embraces Moon joyfully, holding him tightly in her arms and caressing his head. Moon is a little stunned by the impact of her voluminous breasts, but he's not in a position to escape her embrace. The Duke and Duchess, who possess a high status in this world, are my parents who love me deeply. Next, he will introduce one by one the partners he has met, the 3rd princess of the empire, known as the Pure White Maiden and the future Ice Queen. The 3rd princess of the empire mentioned by Moon is named Cecilia Leopold. She has long white hair and a pair of blue eyes. She wears a white dress that enhances her silhouette, perfectly embodying the nobility of a princess. And this gentle and elegant princess is about to become the most important person in Moon's life. She is my future wife. Lying timidly on the floor, her eyes darted around, but there was also a trace of expectation in them. It seems she has a side we don't yet know. The girl herself to be introduced is named Anna Kablin. She has long black hair with a red ribbon tied on the left side. She wears a red school uniform, making it clear that she is a student. She raised her face and looked forward. Her movements were very cute. Known as the Black Witch of Santa Maria, she is a super beautiful girl who also holds the position of president and librarian of the Ancient Potions Society. She is my most respected colleague, 1 year above me. Although Moon respects Anna, who is so adorable, she actually has some unknown facets. Look, she's holding a feather and gently teasing Moon, who is lying in her lap. She looked down with a mischievous smile. Moon held a bone in his mouth and stared at her with a rigid expression, his face showing some discomfort. Oh, by the way, she's also known as the strongest human in the world. This girl dressed in a robe with sleeves and a black dress is named Mela the Mill. Although she looks small, she masters various types of magic. Yes, this little girl with white hair and red eyes, she is my mentor. She looked forward with a playful expression, seeming to have a side that others didn't know. After introducing so many female companions around him, according to the development of the story, Moon should be the absolute protagonist. However, he closed his eyes and opened his arms, murmuring to himself. At this moment, some people would say, "You have money, power, and beautiful girls. Aren't you a definitive winner in life?" He ran his hand through his hair with a helpless expression. In the beginning, I thought the same, but suddenly, Moon moved forward with a serious and experienced expression. I am not the protagonist. Turns out that in this world that Moon was in, he himself was not the main character. The real protagonists were other people. From left to right were Anna, the brave Ariel Bugard, and the holy maiden Leon Angel. They are the true protagonists of this world. I've been following this book for 2 years, and this is a world where talented women are the main characters. The true protagonist is a girl. A girl. However, Moon was different from them. His character setting in this world was in an opposing camp to theirs. Moon walked ahead, wearing a gray school uniform. Behind him, some students who looked like delinquents followed him. It seemed that Moon's school environment wasn't very good. And I, Moon Campbell, am just a yellow-haired villain in this book. I'm the kind of idiot that the protagonist team will inevitably encounter on their journey, especially in causing destruction and providing the protagonists with growth experience. I'm like a classic goblin that everyone who passes by needs to kill a few of to train. Then Moon turned the book in his hands to a certain page and pointed excitedly to some large characters in the book. The words written in black ink on this page were, "Predicted and Irreversible Destiny." The most frustrating thing is that this damned book of prophecies told me that I couldn't change this destiny. Otherwise I would die even faster. Turns out that the book in Moon's hands was the book of prophecy. Words already written in the book meant that the destiny of the prophecy could no longer be changed. Realizing that he couldn't change his predefined destiny, Moon had no other choice. He sighed and closed the book. That doesn't work. Then I have no choice but to use my trump card. Moon left his desk and threw himself onto the sofa beside it, lying awkwardly with a tired expression on his face. He threw the book of prophecy onto the bed behind him, and all at once, "I've completely given up, guys. The ship will naturally sink when it reaches the bridge. Let me enjoy my time as a young noble master before my inevitable destiny arrives." Suddenly, Moon thought of something. He touched his chin and looked forward with disdain. "Hey, since I've reincarnated as a young noble master, is there any possibility that a 5 feet 9 inches versatile and super beautiful long-haired black maid would say to me, 'Young master, I like you the most. Please go out with me?'" Moon thought for a moment. As a villain in this world, how could anyone like him? Realizing his position in this world, he couldn't help but cover his mouth with his hand and burst into laughter. How could that be possible? The original owner of this body is the infamous scoundrel of the Empire, the one who makes everyone cry. How could anyone like this? At this moment, a maid entered Moon's room. "Young master." Hearing the sound, Moon was a little startled and immediately turned to look at her. He seemed not to have noticed that someone had entered the room. The woman wearing the maid uniform that enhanced her silhouette was named N. She looked at Moon and spoke seriously. "I like the young master." Moon seemed a little surprised by Anne's words. He closed his eyes and lightly tapped his forehead with his hand, as if trying to hide his embarrassment. "Seriously?" he whispered in his heart. "I didn't expect that someone would actually like me." Suddenly, Anne activated her own magic. She raised her hand forward, and red energy emanating around her enveloped her body. Then, these red energies formed chains and flew towards Moon. Yes, technically, my feelings for the young master are not just affection. It's love. Moon was directly bound by these chains. He looked at the chains on his body in horror and then raised his eyes to Anne, not understanding what was happening. At this moment, Anne continued what she was saying. I will fulfill all the young master's whimsical requests. I will eliminate all the insects around the young master. Then she moved closer to Moon, her breasts pressing firmly against his body. She reached out and lifted Moon's chin, forcing him to look at her. Moon was speechless, not knowing what to say at that moment. He could only stare at this maid who was behaving strangely in front of him and whispered that weighty sentence. You will become something that belongs only to me, perhaps due to the use of magic, and exhaled a warm breath. This made Moon's face itch. She stared at him with deep affection and tenderness, but little did he know, her eyes contained a strong desire to monopolize him. She already wanted to take Moon for herself a long time ago. Young master, she called Moon softly in a tone filled with special emotions. Now let's go back to when I arrived in this world. A grand mansion is shown in the background, called Campbell Manor. I woke up in a luxuriously decorated room, groggy, only to be hit by a flood of memories about my death the night before. The opulence around me indicated something extraordinary, but only when I looked into the nearby mirror did I truly understand what had happened. The face staring back at me was not my old one. It belonged to a young man, maybe 17 or 18 years old, with sharp, handsome contrasts and striking yellow hair. Shock and disbelief washed over me. Could it be true? Had I really traveled through time and assumed the identity of Moon Campbell? To confirm my suspicions, I needed proof. A sudden, impulsive idea crossed my mind. Picking up a small knife on the table, I made a cut to my finger. The sharp pain and the sight of scarlet blood trickling down my hand left no room for doubt. The cut was very deep, and he didn't mean to do that, and the sensation was too real to just be a dream. It was undeniable. I had reincarnated into the world of the novel that I loved so much. Upon remembering the name and face of Moon Campbell, he recalled that in his past life, he was an avid reader of the novel, The Strongest Female Protagonist in History. Before his death, this novel had become extremely popular, and he followed it closely. The story revolved around a protagonist who was the illegitimate daughter of a fallen noble family. During her journey, she faced various monsters, leveled up, and in the end, became a heroine who saved the world. However, Moon Campbell was portrayed as a blonde, brainless brute villain whose sole role was to be humiliated. He used his family's influence to try to kill the protagonist repeatedly. Each assassination attempt failed, making the protagonist even more powerful. In the end, Moon committed an unpardonable crime that led to the ruin of his entire family. As a result, he was exiled and ended up as a beggar. His role in the story lasted only 20 chapters, culminating in one of the worst possible fates. Realizing that he had reincarnated into this character, Moon lamented. Worst of all, Campbell had no talent whatsoever. He relied solely on his position to bully the protagonist. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Moon reflected confused. Why can't I just live a peaceful life as a good young master? Clenching his fists, he cursed that fool. Now I'm the one who has to suffer. Why, God? Why did you do this to me? His chest filled with bitterness. Other people are reborn as protagonists, but not me. I'm destined to be the villain. His mind was in chaos, he couldn't even think straight. Suddenly, a light knock on the door pulled him from his reverie. Hoping deep down, he composed himself. You may enter. The door creaked open, and one of the maids entered and gave a respectful bow. Young master, the outfit for tomorrow's banquet is ready. The Duke requested that you try it on to verify the fit. Moon nodded, his voice gentler than usual. Just leave it on the table. I'll try it on later. Annie hesitated for a moment, frowning slightly. Moon's unexpectedly amiable attitude caught her attention. This was not typical of him. As she placed the outfit on the table, her gaze fell upon Moon's hand. She noticed a thin cut with a trace of blood. Master, are you injured? Her voice carried a tone of concern. Moon looked at his own hand, remembering the small cut he had received earlier. He dismissed the concern with a gesture. It's nothing. I accidentally cut myself with a knife. If you have any medicine or bandages to stop the bleeding, bring them to me. Anne's eyes widened slightly. Bandages? Medicine? The words seemed strange to her. She maintained her composure, kneeling before him. "Master, I do not know what a bandage is, but if you wish to stop the bleeding, I can take care of it myself." Moon looked confused. "Without medicine? How do you plan to do that?" Without answering directly, Annie took Moon's hand. "Okay, here's the translated text, adjusted for a US English audience." He delicately, without hesitating, brought his finger to his lips and put it in his mouth to stop the bleeding. Moon froze, instantly feeling his face flush. He stared at her in disbelief, his cheeks turning a deep crimson. He had never seen anyone treat a wound in such an unexpected and intimate way. Annie's face remained calm, but there was a subtle air of seduction in her movements. Moon couldn't look away, feeling his heart race. "What is this feeling?" When she finished, Annie gently wiped her finger with the cloth, sealing that strange ritual. Then, she looked up at him and said seriously, "Young master, you are very precious. Your blood is equally valuable. Don't waste it by getting hurt." The words sent a shiver down Moon's spine. He didn't know if it was the proximity, her tone of voice, or the unexpectedness of the moment. Feeling overwhelmed, he just watched Annie stand up, give a bow, and leave the room. He sat there stunned for a moment, staring at the door, replaying the scene in his mind. He shook his head, trying to regain his composure, but his thoughts betrayed him. What just happened? His mind was still reeling, his chest tight. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop thinking about Annie. The way she looked, the warmth of her touch, the firmness in her words. Meanwhile, Annie walked down the hallway, equally intrigued. What was that about? Moon had always been indifferent, even cold, with the servants, but this time he had thanked her. That moment lingered in her mind, leaving her strangely restless. Back in his room, Moon tried to distract himself, but he soon returned to thinking about why Moon Campbell had been exiled. He frowned, recalling the scandal during the third princess's coming-of-age ceremony. He had tried to drug her to gain her favor. That thoughtless act sealed his fate, marking him as a villain. Leaning back in his chair, Moon let out a long sigh. So that's it. If I avoid provoking the protagonist and stay away from stupid mistakes during the ceremony, maybe there's still hope. A new confidence began to grow within him. This is my second chance. I won't let history repeat itself. I'll stay out of trouble, live in peace, and rewrite my destiny. For the first time since his reincarnation, he felt hope. Moon sat up in bed, trying to remember the date of the third princess's ceremony. Suddenly, a realization hit him like a lightning bolt. Wait a minute. Annie just brought me a suit to try on. That suit is for the ceremony. That means tomorrow is the day. His heart sank, and the fragile hope he had clung to crumbled. Despair washed over him. Why? He murmured to himself, his voice trembling. Every reincarnated character gets a system, a cheat, something. Why don't I have anything? God, if you're listening, please just give me my cheat code. For a moment, Moon allowed himself to cry in frustration. But eventually, he took a deep breath and controlled his nerves. No, I can't lose it now. If I want to survive, I need to act wisely. He straightened his posture, determination sparkling in his eyes. Tomorrow, he murmured to himself, I'll apologize to the protagonist and resolve the grudges of the past, no matter what happens. His voice grew firmer with each word, even though the idea of the possible humiliation ahead made his stomach churn. She might make me lick her feet in public? He imagined, a shiver of fear running down his spine. But then, he clenched his fists and decided with determination. So be it. A single day of humiliation is much better than becoming a beggar for the rest of my life. If that's the price for survival, I'll pay it. As Moon accepted his fate, a small spark of hope rekindled within him. He felt a slight relief, as if he finally had a plan to grasp. But just as he began to mentally prepare for the challenges to come, a strange sound filled the room. A portal materialized above his head. Before he could react, Something heavy fell from it and hit him squarely. "Ah, what the heck?" Moon yelled, rubbing the sore spot. Irritated, he turned to see what had hit him, his frustration growing. "Who the heck hit me?" His voice died as he spotted it. There on the messy sheets lay an ornate grimoire. Its black leather cover gleamed faintly with a mysterious sheen, and strange runic symbols adorned its surface. Moon's irritation vanished, replaced by astonishment and disbelief. Slowly, he reached out and picked up the grimoire, holding it as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. His lips curled into a trembling smile, and he whispered, "Finally! My cheat has arrived." Moon clutched the grimoire tightly, his hands trembling with excitement and relief. He looked up at the ceiling and murmured, "Thank you, God, for your kindness. Until now, I had nothing to change my destiny, but now my future is in my hands." Feeling a surge of determination, he opened the grimoire with great anticipation. But upon seeing the pages, his excitement gave way to confusion. It was completely blank. He furrowed his brow. "An empty grimoire?" he thought, flipping through the pages with nothing written. The first thing that came to mind was Asta's 5-leaf grimoire from Black Clover. Asterisk, could it be like that? A grimoire waiting to reveal its power? Asterisk, he wondered, trying to figure out how to activate it. As he pondered, a single drop of blood from his wound fell onto the surface of the book. The instant the blood touched the pages, an immense wave of dark energy exploded, filling the room with a suffocating aura. Moon stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock. The energy was overwhelming, pulsing as if it were alive. Before he could react, his vision went dark. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a completely different place. His body ached all over, and it took a tremendous effort just to keep his eyes open. Pain coursed through his body, and he realized that his wrists and ankles were chained with iron shackles. The cold, damp air of a cell enveloped him. He groaned, trying to lift his head, and saw a figure in front of him. A girl with a distorted and unsettling smile. Her eyes gleamed with a mixture of amusement and malice. "Finally, you're awake," she said, her voice sending shivers down Moon's spine. "I've been waiting for you for so long." Moon tried to speak, but his throat was dry and the pain was overwhelming, making it impossible to form words. The girl continued, her tone dripping with mockery. "I know you're suffering. It's written all over your face. But I had to do this, you understand, to teach you a lesson." She crouched down, bringing her face closer to his. "You disappointed me, Sebielu. Being a villain and planning to apologize? A great villain doesn't crawl like a coward. A great villain is cruel, selfish, and feared by everyone. You changed everything, but don't worry." She reached out, lightly stroking his face with a mocking touch. "I'll make you go back to being how you were before. Then we'll be together forever. Not even death can separate us." Moon's heart leaped in terror as her words echoed in his mind. The pain, the sinister smile, the icy tone. It was all too much. He screamed, a guttural cry of fear and frustration. Suddenly, everything around him shattered like glass. He blinked rapidly and realized he was back in his room. The grimoire was still on the bed, emitting a faint glow. His body was unharmed, but his mind was a mess. His breathing came in short, frantic gasps as he tried to understand what had just happened. Was that real? He whispered, clutching his chest as if trying to calm his racing heart. The memory of the girl's smile and her words haunted his thoughts. He looked back at the grimoire, now more uncertain than ever about the power it possessed. Moon remained motionless, staring at the book on the bed. His mind was a storm of confusion and fear. If that was a dream, it felt too real. The lingering pain in his body was proof enough that what he had experienced wasn't just imagination. As he pieced together his memory, a realization hit him like a hammer. Asterisk, before I passed out, my blood fell on the grimoire. Could that be it? Was it trying to warn me? Did it show me a tragic future because I was about to make a terrible mistake? Asterisk, unable to resist, he reached out and opened the grimoire again, cautiously. This time, Words glowed ominously on the first page. Do not change the future. Moon's breath caught in his throat. He reread the words, feeling the weight of fear grow in his chest. Asterisk, this is my cheat code. A warning to stay on the path of the story. That means if I deviate, I'll have a tragic end. Asterisk, his hands trembled as he closed the grimoire and leaned back against the wall. The weight of the revelation was crushing. Asterisk, so, in the end, I'm just a puppet? My existence doesn't matter, and the only way to survive is to choose the path of destruction. Asterisk, for a moment, despair threatened to overwhelm him. But then, Moon's lips curled into a mocking smile, and a spark of defiance shone in his eyes. Well, thinking about it, he reflected. The ending of the light novel wasn't that bad. Moon Campbell became a beggar because he was a useless piece of trash with no skills or means to survive. But I'm different. He straightened his posture, feeling confidence blossom within him. I've already worked late for my company under the most unbearable and abusive bosses. Compared to that, living here is easy. And unlike the others in this world, I don't have to start from scratch. I have the wisdom of the modern world with me. Moon clenched his fists, feeling determination grow. This is my second chance. If the only way to survive is to take on the role of a villain, so be it. I'll be the greatest villain this world has ever seen. I'll make my enemies suffer, and I'll rewrite this destiny on my own terms. He looked at the grimoire, his smile widening. And I'll make this cheat code worth it. At the grand dining table, Moon found himself marveling at the meal before him. The aroma of the dishes was enough to make him lose his mind. Each dish was so exquisitely prepared that it seemed like a dream. So this is how nobles live, he thought, his mouth watering as he savored each bite. As Moon indulged in the flavors, his mother, Noyce Campbell, watched him with a soft smile. It seems something good happened to our little Moon today, she said in a teasing tone, her elegant posture carrying a touch of maternal warmth. Before Moon could respond, his father, Lon Campbell, the Duke of the Leopold Empire, said, "He's happy because tomorrow is the most important banquet of his life." Moon nodded, straightening up in his chair. "Yes, father. I'm looking forward to it." Noyce's eyes sparkled with pride as she rested her hands delicately on the table. "Of course he is. After all, our Moon is the most handsome young master in the city. Tomorrow, many young noble ladies will certainly be enchanted by him." The Duke raised an eyebrow at his wife's bold statement. "You shouldn't say things like that," he cautioned. "If Princess Cecilia hears, she might get jealous. If that happens, I'll have a hard time giving her explanations." Noyce scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "I don't care about that girl, Princess Cecilia. She's cold and not cute at all in my eyes. A girl like her isn't worthy of our little Moon." The Duke shook his head, an amused smile playing on his lips. "If the greatest beauty in the country isn't worthy of our son, then I'm afraid no one is." Moon remained silent, watching his parents exchange teasing banter. His mother's confidence in him was overwhelming, but strangely comforting. Deep down, he couldn't avoid a slight nervousness about tomorrow's banquet. Still, he maintained his composure, eating politely and enjoying that rare moment of familial warmth. As he sat at the table, Moon began to organize his thoughts about Princess Cecilia. She was the third princess of the Leopold Empire, widely considered one of the greatest prodigies of the nation and, without a doubt, the most beautiful girl in the empire. Despite her young age, her cold and calculating personality earned her a legion of admirers throughout the country. And yet, Moon thought with concern, my mother compares me to her? A son with no talent and no brains? He glanced at his parents, who were chatting animatedly about tomorrow's banquet, their faces glowing with pride and affection. Only these two people in the entire world treat me like a treasure. But he couldn't help feeling sorry for them. In the novel, both Noyce and Duke Campbell were kind and virtuous people, but despite their goodness and love, they had the misfortune of raising a son like the original Moon Campbell, a useless, selfish loser. He remembered that in the story, the events of tomorrow's banquet would implicate his family in a scandal that would mark the beginning of their ruin. Moon's expression darkened as he recalled how the plot unfolded. Asterisk, the Campbell family will be destroyed after tomorrow's banquet. My mother and father, now so full of life and pride, will face destruction because of what's about to happen. Asterisk, he thought of the grimoire, the ominous warning still fresh in his mind. The grimoire says I can't change the plot of the story, but does that mean I have to lose everything without a fight? His jaw clenched as determination flashed in his eyes. No, I can't accept that. Although the grimoire forbade him from altering his own destiny, Moon perceived a loophole in its rule. It never said I can't change someone else's destiny. He began to work rapidly as he connected the dots. Asterisk, about the fall of the Campbell family. The real reason for our ruin wasn't my attack on Princess Cecilia. That was just a pretext. The real cause was my father being accused of treason. Because of that, he lost his military power and was dragged into the cruel political struggle of the empire. Asterisk, a plan began to form in his mind, each step becoming clearer. If I want to save the Campbell family, I'll have to ensure that tomorrow's incident happens exactly as it does in the story, but with one crucial difference. He clenched his fists, completely resolving himself. Asterisk, I will take all the blame. The Campbell family will remain intact, and my father will keep his military power. Even if my reputation is completely destroyed, it's a price I'm willing to pay. The Campbell family can become an asset for my future plans, and with my modern knowledge and my newfound determination, I'll rebuild everything from the ashes. Asterisk, tomorrow, he would take on the role. Okay, here's the English translation of the text, adjusted for clarity and natural flow. Voluntarily taking on the role of the villain that the story demanded, but this time on his own terms, he walked down the hallway. His thoughts were consumed by Princess Cecilia. He knew she was a genius without equal, making it impossible to bring her down with common drugs. Furthermore, the original owner of his body had no memories related to drugs, meaning there were none in the mansion. This left only one option: the black market. In the novel, the black market was a place where anything forbidden in the Leopold Empire could be easily found, including all kinds of illicit substances. If he wanted to take full responsibility for what was to come, he needed to go there. Lost in thought, he suddenly collided with a maid. The tray she was carrying crashed to the floor, and the black tea meant for the Duke and his wife spilled across the polished tiles. The pale, sickly-looking maid immediately stiffened. Mon hurried to apologize, admitting the mistake was entirely his. He explained that he was distracted and hadn't been paying attention to where he was going. Then, noticing her discomfort, he asked if she was all right. However, upon seeing Mon, the maid became visibly terrified. She was so overcome with fear that she couldn't even speak. Instead, she rushed to crouch down and began cleaning Mon's clothes, whispering apologies repeatedly. But as she realized the stain wouldn't come out, she panicked. In her mind, this was the end. Mon would certainly strip her and throw her out on the street. Observing the maid's reaction, a thought crossed Mon's mind. What kind of bastard was the original owner of this body? Just for spilling some black tea, the girl was trembling with fear. Wanting to calm her down, he assured her she wouldn't be punished. In his own way, he checked her body temperature, placing his hand on her forehead, confirming his suspicion. When I first saw you, you looked sick, he stated. And it seems I was right. You have a fever, your forehead is burning up. Why are you working in this condition? You should be resting. The maid hesitated before responding. She explained that the coming-of-age ceremony was scheduled for the next day, and since they were already short-staffed, she had no choice but to continue working. Mon shook his head. You can't work like this, he said firmly. At this moment, Annie appeared. Without hesitation, Mon ordered, "This maid is not to work until she has completely recovered." Then he turned to the girl. "What's your name?" The maid lowered her head slightly before answering, "My name is Noelle." Mon gave a slight nod. "Go rest, Noelle." However, Noelle quickly recalled the situation. Tomorrow is the coming-of-age ceremony, and each employee has their responsibilities. If someone is absent, the others will have to work overtime. Mon scoffed at the idea. This is the Duke's mansion. I believe we have more than enough funds to hire temporary maids, he stated. Every maid who is sick should rest until she has completely recovered. In the meantime, hire temporary replacements. If the employees are sick, they could cause problems for the guests. Annie acknowledged his words with a nod. I will pass the order to the housekeeper immediately, she assured him. Noticing the drastic change in Mon's attitude, Noelle looked at Annie with a confused expression. She hesitated for a moment before asking, wasn't it the young master who forbade hiring new maids? He always insisted that bringing in outsiders would compromise the security of the Duke's mansion. So why is he changing his orders today? This is something he has never done before. Annie sighed, unwilling to delve deeper into the matter. Don't think too much about it, she responded. You're sick. Go rest. Mon observed that the young master had changed significantly compared to the past. To avoid any unforeseen events, he believed that careful planning was necessary in advance. Meanwhile, Mon was searching for something in his room. He knew that to drug the princess, he would need an exceptionally strong potion. The key ingredient needed to make it could only be obtained on the black market. After searching through his belongings, he finally found his VIP pass to the underground black market. Later that night, Mon arrived at the Chessford Chamber of Commerce. He ordered his guards to stop at the entrance of the building and proceeded alone toward Antonio's. As he walked, he remembered that this should be the access point to the underground black market. Upon arriving at the entrance, the guard stationed there stopped him and demanded to know his purpose. Without hesitation, Mon presented his VIP pass. Recognizing its authenticity, the guards let him pass. Inside, the underground black market was teeming with activity. Rare potion ingredients and synthetic magical beasts were openly sold in the streets. As he walked through the market, Mon remembered that anything, even human slaves, could be bought there. He recalled that one of the protagonist's companions had been a human slave. However, he quickly dismissed any thoughts about the slave trade and focused on his goal. He entered a dimly lit shop where a masked merchant greeted him. Without wasting time, the merchant asked what kind of potion Mon needed. He specified that he needed one that was odorless, colorless, and with effects that lasted several hours. The masked merchant laughed as if understanding his intentions and commented that Mon seemed to have peculiar tastes and interests in wild games. She even offered to recommend some slave shops that were offering great discounts at the moment. However, Mon turned to leave, stating that it seemed she didn't have what he needed. Before he could take another step, the merchant stopped him, assuring him that she did possess the rare potion but that it would take some time to acquire it. Observing her, Mon noted that she concealed her entire body and even used magic to alter her voice. However, despite her disguise, her tone, posture, and the impressive curves of her body, especially her thighs, suggested that she was an extremely beautiful woman. Furthermore, he deduced that she must be quite powerful, as in an environment with laws like the black market, only the strong thrived, and she had managed to establish a solid position. Realizing her potential, Mon considered the possibility of building a good relationship with her. After all, once exiled from the Empire, she could become a valuable ally. While awaiting the potion, the merchant asked Mon to be patient for a little longer. Remaining calm, Mon assured her that there was no rush, as long as the potion was available. At this moment, another customer entered the shop, and to Mon's surprise, asked for exactly the same potion. The merchant, visibly intrigued, commented that it was quite a coincidence. It wasn't common for someone to seek that particular potion, but on that day, 2 customers were after it. Mon turned to observe the new customer and realized it was a young woman. The fact that she needed a potion like that seemed strange to him. He immediately became suspicious, thinking that she might be acquiring the potion to harm someone. While he wanted to intervene, he knew he couldn't. Whoever the victim of the potion was would have to deal with the consequences on their own. At that moment, the merchant's animated voice echoed through the shop, announcing that she had finally found the potion. As soon as Mon laid eyes on it, he noticed its vibrant red color, too flashy for a potion of this type. Noticing the change in Mon's expression, the merchant offered him a reassuring smile. She explained that there would be no reason to worry about the intense red color of the potion. Knowing that it was too flashy on its own, she revealed that the potion was normally mixed with red wine, making it undetectable. Although she admitted that this was a small flaw in the design, she dismissed its importance since the wine provided the perfect camouflage. The best part, she added confidently, is that the potion is completely odorless and dissolves perfectly in the wine. Then she leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice as if she were sharing a secret. And here's the most important part. It's incredibly potent. Just a single drop is enough to knock out an elephant almost instantly. Once affected, the animal won't wake up for less than 3 or 4 hours. She smiled slyly. Now imagine how effective it would be on a human. Mon's eyes widened in shock, and he turned to the merchant, his voice filled with urgency as he asked, "Are you serious? This can knock out an elephant." The merchant laughed, nodding in confirmation. "You're getting exactly what you asked for," she assured him. Then, with a provocative glint in her eyes, she added, "Of course, if you're still in doubt, you can test it right here, but if you faint and I have to take care of you, we'll charge you 5,000 yen per hour as a babysitter." Before Mon could respond, the female customer interjected. "That won't be necessary," she stated firmly. "I already knew how it works." The merchant nodded, approving the response. Then, in a more businesslike tone, she announced, "This isn't just any sleeping potion. This is Nongshang's dream, a true masterpiece, and for a potion of this caliber, the price is 130,000 ys. The merchant maintained a firm expression and said, "If you're thinking of haggling, you can forget it. This shop doesn't accept negotiations of any kind." Pointing to the counter, she added, "We accept all methods of payment. Card, cash, or whatever works best for you." Satisfied with the response, Mon reached out to grab his card. However, the instant he was about to hand it over, he heard the female customer speak. "I don't have enough yen," she admitted without hesitation. "I won't pay with money." Mon's attention returned to her, intrigued by her audacity. The woman placed a folded scroll on the counter and continued, "Instead, can I sell you information in exchange for the potion?" The merchant observed her intently, noticing the unwavering confidence in her demeanor. Something about her piqued her curiosity. Still, she remained skeptical, crossing her arms. "Really?" Remind the woman 130,000 yen is not a small amount. For your information to be worth that much, it would have to be something very relevant. Holding the scroll between her fingers, the woman smiled slyly. "You got lucky today," she said softly, "because what I have is worth much more than you can imagine." The merchant stared at her for a moment before finally going to pick up the scroll. Unfolding it carefully, she murmured, "Let's see if what's folded here is really worth more than 130,000 ys." She read in silence, her expression changing subtly after a few moments. She let out a sigh and shook her head in excitement. "If this information is true," she murmured, "then things are about to get very interesting." The female customer stared at her without looking away. "Whether it's true or not," she said with a cunning smile, "is something you'll have to find out. If you're working in the black market, then verifying the validity of things should be well within your capabilities." The merchant laughed, nodding in agreement. "You're right. If I had run a shop here without the necessary skills, I wouldn't last a day." She cast one last look at the scroll before folding it again. "I must admit, this information is really worth 130,000 ys. With that, she slid the potion across the counter. "There, now it's yours." The customer took the potion and put it away, saying, "Thank you very much," then turned to leave. Meanwhile, the merchant turned her attention back to Mon. "Young master, how would you like to pay?" Without taking his eyes off the customer, Mon handed over his card and said, "Swipe and process the payment." The merchant did as asked, and upon completing the transaction, placed a small vial next to the sleeping potion. "Consider this a gift," she said with an enigmatic smile. "Use them together, and you'll have even better results." Mon took both vials and put them away carefully before casting a curious glance at the merchant. What exactly was the information she gave you? He asked. A gleeful glint passed through the merchant's eyes as she leaned slightly forward, intrigued. Are we negotiating? She teased. I can sell it to you if you're willing to pay the price. She raised her hand and slowly extended 9 fingers. 90,000 Emily's? He guessed. The shop owner let out an amused laugh and shook her head.
No, 90,000.
900,000 yeds. Mon froze for a moment, then gasped, spun on his heels and dashed out of the shop. As he hurried through the bustling market, his thoughts raced. She just bought this information in front of me, and in seconds she's already selling it for 7 times the price. The black market really is full of vultures looking for profit. No matter how much I spend here, there's no chance of winning their loyalty. In fact, if they have the opportunity, they'll probably exploit me. His grip on the potions in his hands tightened. If I need help in the future, it won't be from people like them. As he exited the shop, the owner waved with a malicious smile. Goodbye, young master, and don't forget to visit my shop next time you're in the black market. She watched him disappear into the crowd before her expression changed, the playful facade dissolving. With a sigh, she raised her hand and pulled back her hood, revealing sharp, calculating eyes. The lively murmur of the market faded into the background as her mind turned to more pressing matters. Tomorrow marks the coming-of-age ceremony of the Campbell family, she murmured to herself, running her fingers along the edges of the scroll she had just acquired. And according to my sources, the 3rd princess will be present. A slow smile spread across her lips. The Campbell family was one of the most powerful noble houses in the empire, and the presence of a member of the royal family at their event could only mean one thing. Political maneuvering was afoot. Her gaze darkened. For such an important event, the Duke's mansion has recruited several outsiders. That in itself is intriguing, but now that I have information about them. She left the words hanging in the air, tapping her fingers rhythmically against the wooden counter. The real question is, who should I sell it to? With a decisive movement, she removed her mask, her smile widening. For all I know, the 2nd prince despises his younger sister, Princess Cecilia. Her exceptional talent has always overshadowed him, becoming a constant obstacle in his path. Then, to Duke Raymond, Okay, here's the translated text, adjusted for natural English flow. Hate for Grand Duke Campbell runs deep, the animosity between them profound. Her fingers tightened around the parchment. Now that I possess such valuable information about the Campbell family, why limit myself to a single buyer? A sharp, predatory smile crossed her face. If I sell it to both their enemies, I'll be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. A glint of greed sparked in her eyes as she whispered, This way, I'll ensure the greatest possible profit. The following night, the grand halls of the Campbell mansion shimmered under the reflection of countless chandeliers, casting a warm, golden light over the assembled nobility. Laughter and the soft murmur of music mingled, creating the night's opulent atmosphere. Servants moved with agility, refilling glasses of fine wine, while groups of high-ranking nobles conversed in hushed tones, their words laden with subtle intentions. Among the distinguished guests were Moon and his father, the Grand Duke. Their presence alone commanded respect, drawing discreet glances from those around them. As they conversed, a nobleman approached them with a respectful bow, his posture immediately radiating formality. Beside him stood a young woman, her delicate figure draped in an elegant, pastel-colored gown. Despite her composed appearance, there was an unmistakable tension in her posture, as if she were walking on thin ice. Your Grace, the nobleman addressed the Grand Duke, his tone polished. Allow me to introduce my 3rd daughter. The girl swallowed hard, visibly uncomfortable, but forced a smile and lowered her head respectfully. It's an honor to meet you, Grand Duke, she murmured, her voice almost trembling. The moment she raised her gaze, her eyes met Moon's for a brief moment. Time seemed to freeze. Her pupils dilated, her breathing became erratic, and an inexplicable terror flashed across her expression. She barely had time to react before she recoiled, panic etched on her face. I apologize, she stammered, her voice failing. My mother. She's calling me. Without waiting for a response, she turned and fled, nearly tripping over the hem of her dress as she disappeared into the crowd. The nobleman let out an embarrassed laugh and gave Moon a slight bow. My sincerest apologies, young Master Moon. My daughter is rather shy, and seeing such a handsome man like you, she panicked and ran. Moon crossed his arms and smirked. It's quite all right. I know I'm handsome, and it's not uncommon for girls to react this way around me. He waved his hand dismissively. I don't take such things to heart. You may enjoy the ceremony in peace. The nobleman chuckled in relief before excusing himself. But as Moon watched him walk away, his relaxed expression vanished, replaced by a thoughtful frown. All the girls here are acting strange, nervous, scared, uneasy. He let out a quiet sigh. I know the Marquis Rio's daughter didn't flee because of my appearance. She was afraid of me. His gaze discreetly swept across the ballroom, observing the women present. They all averted their eyes whenever he looked at them for too long, whispering amongst themselves, their voices carrying traces of apprehension. To their eyes, I'm not just a noble heir. I'm a lunatic, a villain, a stain on high society. Moon subtly clenched his jaw. And the worst part of it all is, I can't even blame them. The previous owner of this body already ruined my reputation before I even took control. A large, firm hand ruffled his hair suddenly, pulling him from his thoughts. Don't overthink it. His father's deep voice resonated beside him. The tall and imposing Grand Duke looked at his son with a barrel of pride in his eyes. You've done well today. I was worried before, but now I'm sure. You are the protagonist of this ceremony. Moon blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected praise. His father's grip on his shoulder tightened slightly. Remember, after today, you will no longer be seen as a boy. You will be recognized as a man, a true man in the Campbell family. A small smile touched Moon's lips. I will do my best, he replied, his tone laced with quiet determination. I will become a true man worthy of our name. At that moment, a sudden chime echoed through the grand hall, drawing everyone's attention. A voice boomed through the hall, reverberating with a tone of reverence. Welcome, the most beautiful lady blessed by the goddess of ice and snow, Her Highness, the third princess of the Leopold Empire, Princess Cecilia. Immediately, movement rippled through the hall as nobles and guests turned toward the grand entrance. Out of deep respect, they lowered their heads in synchronized reverence. Moon remained standing, his eyes fixed ahead as the air seemed to shift, becoming colder, sharper, almost as if winter itself had taken hold. Then she appeared. Princess Cecilia entered the grand hall, her presence imposing and ethereal. She was dressed in a flowing gown embroidered with intricate silver threads that shimmered like frost under the light. She moved with an almost supernatural grace, her long, snow-white hair cascading behind her like a frozen waterfall, and her pale eyes like sapphires. Her distant gaze swept across the room with an impenetrable expression. The hall fell silent, entranced by her presence. Moon's father walked over to the two dukes to greet them, advising Moon to not neglect the royal princess during the banquet. Moon assured him he wouldn't and headed over to greet Princess Cecilia, who had just arrived. It's been a while, Moon, Cecilia said with a polite smile. Moon returned the gesture, his tone unexpectedly warm. You're especially lovely today, Princess. Cecilia blinked in slight surprise at the compliment but quickly regained her composure. Thank you, but it's rare to hear such praise from you, young Master Moon. Moon chuckled softly, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Hearing that makes me realize I must seem like a rude person who doesn't even know how to talk to a pretty girl. Without missing a beat, Cecilia replied, You are a rude person. All the guests at this banquet know that. The bluntness of her words caused a brief silence between them, but Moon didn't let the silence linger. He straightened up slightly, opting to change the tone to something more formal. You must be tired from the long journey. You should rest. The official start is later. Until then, please make yourself comfortable. Cecilia's expression softened a little. "Thank you for that," she said before turning gracefully and walking away. Moon let out a sigh he hadn't realized he was holding, watching her disappear into the crowd. She's as beautiful as I imagined, but also as cold and terrifying. Despite having been the one who read the novel countless times, he never expected the female lead to have such an intense aura in person. Meeting her face to face is much harder than I thought. Princess Cecilia moved gracefully through the banquet hall, exchanging greetings with the other nobles. However, her mind drifted back to Moon. He's changed a lot, she reflected, stealing a quick glance in his direction. It almost seems like he's a completely different person. She wondered if his uncharacteristically polite and well-mannered behavior today was the reason for this impression. Perhaps he's simply in a good mood, or perhaps something has changed in him. Her thoughts were interrupted by a low murmur that spread through the hall. The crowd's attention had shifted simultaneously in a subtle way. The whispers grew louder with each moment. "The Count's illegitimate daughter is here," someone whispered. "She's the same one who dueled with her own fiancé a long time ago," another added, their tone laden with scandal. The growing murmurs caught Moon's attention. His gaze followed the crowd's discreet glances until he spotted the girl at the center of the gossip. "They say Count Bugard even named her his heir," a voice continued, clear incredulity in their tone. "The worst part isn't that she's illegitimate. It's that she's a woman. She's completely unqualified for the title of countess. But Count Bugard insists on passing it on to her. God knows what Count Bugard is thinking. Why would he make her his heir?" Moon muttered. "Careful what you say," someone quickly warned. "The Count is here tonight. If he hears us, we could get into serious trouble." But Moon wasn't paying attention to the warnings. His focus was entirely on the young woman who had become the center of the room's silent scandal. "So it's her," he thought. His heart skipped a beat. Ariel Bugard, the true protagonist of the story. Ariel waved cheerfully, a confident smile on her face. "Hello, Moon. How have you been lately?" she asked, her tone casual but her gaze sharp. Moon opened his mouth to respond, but before he could say a word, a sharp voice cut through the air. "How dare you speak to our young Master Moon in that manner?" snapped a nobleman wearing square glasses, his face flushed with anger. He stepped forward, his disdain clear. "Among all of us, he has the purest blood, and you're nothing but an illegitimate daughter with impure blood. You should know your place." Moon tensed as the murmurs spread through the hall, but before the insult could go any further, Moon moved with swift precision. He clapped his hand over the nobleman's mouth, silencing him mid-sentence. The hall fell into stunned silence. Still holding the nobleman, Moon turned to Ariel with a calm, almost playful smile. "I was going to say that I'm doing very well. Thank you for your concern, Señorita Ariel Bugard," he said, ignoring the muffled protests of the nobleman. Ariel froze for a moment, staring at Moon in disbelief. His unexpected behavior caught her completely off guard. What's going on with him? She wondered. Whenever their paths crossed before, Moon never missed a chance to belittle her, calling her an illegitimate daughter and showing no respect. But this time, he had treated her properly, Señorita Ariel Bugard, and with an unfamiliar tone of courtesy. Her eyebrows furrowed as suspicion began to dawn. Did he hit his head or something? She thought. Or is this really Moon? It's only possible that someone with a brain the size of a peanut suddenly remembers my full name, she reasoned. Before she could think any further about it, Moon shifted his attention to the girl beside her. His smile remained pleasant as he approached. "You must be Miss Lee," he said warmly. Lee stiffened immediately, her face paling as anxiety washed over her. Asterisk, he remembers my name. Asterisk, she panicked. What did I do to offend him? Her mind raced with fear, knowing Moon's infamous reputation. But instead of the insult or mockery she expected, Moon continued with the same calm smile. "You're one of today's important guests. How could I not know your full name? Señorita Lee Angel." Lee's fear deepened even further, her nerves almost unraveling. But before she could respond, Ariel stepped forward, her gaze sharp. Without warning, she shoved Moon's hand away, her patience clearly exhausted. "What are you trying to do, Moon Campbell?" Ariel demanded, her voice low but firm. "Listen carefully. I'm here today because of your father, nothing more. I don't care what you're planning, but if you plan something against Lee—" Her eyes narrowed, her presence radiating a silent threat. "That will be the last mistake of your life." Grabbing Lee's wrist, Ariel pulled her away. Moon watched them walk away, maintaining his calm expression despite the residual sting from Ariel's slap. The original owner of this body must have done many terrible things to her, he thought, the corners of his mouth curving into a subtle smile. "Changing her opinion of me will take time, but it doesn't really matter. After tonight, our paths will diverge." His gaze remained fixed on Ariel's receding figure. "From now on, she will rise as a heroine, while I will fade into the background as a simple worker. Let's see whose future will shine brighter." Before the assembled nobles, Grand Duke Campbell stood tall, completing his speech for Moon's ceremony of adulthood. His voice echoed through the grand hall as he declared, "From this day forward, Moon is officially the heir of the Campbell family." Polite applause filled the room, although Moon didn't feel any pride. If only this moment could have been true, he thought. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, but as the applause subsided, he let out a silent sigh of relief. Finally, it's over. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to relax before straightening his posture. Now, it's time to do what the story's plot requires. Moon turned his attention to his next task. "First, I need to find Princess Cecilia." Scanning the banquet hall, his eyes quickly locked onto her, elegant and composed, standing alone amidst a sea of nobles. Without hesitation, he approached. "Forgive me for leaving a beauty like you alone at this banquet," Moon said smoothly as he drew near. Cecilia turned to him, raising an eyebrow. "You're here again?" Moon replied, though there was a hint of amusement in her voice. Moon chuckled again. "It seems you were right earlier. I truly am a rude host. Let me correct that." He extended his hand to her, his expression softening. "May I have the honor of a dance?" Cecilia hesitated for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly with suspicion. "You're actually inviting me?" she asked, clearly caught off guard by his sudden charm. With all sincerity, Moon responded with a confident smile. "In this entire banquet, there is only one beauty capable of capturing my attention, and that is you, Your Highness. So yes, I am inviting you." Cecilia placed her hand gracefully in Moon's, her expression composed but with a faint trace of amusement. "Today is your coming-of-age ceremony. How could I say no to you?" she remarked. With that, they stepped onto the dance floor, immediately drawing the attention of everyone in the banquet hall. Conversations hushed as all eyes turned to them, watching the pair with great interest. In the distance, Lee tugged on Ariel's sleeve, her eyes wide with excitement. "Sister Ariel, look! Everyone is watching them." Ariel glanced over, her expression neutral, though her sharp eyes didn't miss a single detail of the scene unfolding under the soft glow of the— "Okay, here's the translated text, adjusted for US English and readability." Moon and Cecilia glided across the dance floor with perfect rhythm. Cecilia, with her usual calm demeanor, broke the silence between them. "You have good dance steps," she commented, her voice cool but sincere. Moon offered her a gentle smile. "Thank you for the compliment, but this is just beginner's level." Cecilia tilted her head slightly, her cool gaze meeting his. "You've changed a lot," she murmured softly, though there was a hint of unease in her eyes. "Am I doing something wrong? Is there something about me that doesn't seem noble enough?" Cecilia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Is that it? You're acting too much like a noble today. I remember the last time you invited someone to dance. It was at the college ball, wasn't it? You invited the Viscount's daughter, and I still remember the exact words you used. 'Woman, be happy and celebrate, for this young master has taken pity and granted you the right to walk and dance with me.'" A chill almost made him stumble at the brutal reminder. Asterisk, How am I going to explain that I'm not that imbecile anymore? Asterisk, he thought, masking his discomfort with a forced smile. Cecilia's cool facade cracked slightly as she smiled. I imitated you well. Moon let out a low laugh, though it was more from discomfort than amusement. Perfectly. You are good at impersonation, he admitted before adding. But I was wrong back then. Princess Cecilia, you should forget what happened. Cecilia didn't respond immediately, but let the music fill the silence as the melody of a violin swelled around them. The two continued to dance, their movements synchronized despite the underlying tension. As the music neared its end, Moon leaned in slightly, his voice lower but still polite. Princess Cecilia, would you accompany me to my room? There's something I'd like to discuss with you. Cecilia's steps faltered for a second before she quickly regained her composure. Her cool gaze returned in full force. Even though we're engaged, we're not that close. I'm not going anywhere private with you. A reassuring smile on his face, Moon responds, I understand your concerns, and I have no intention of overstepping my boundaries. I simply wanted to talk about our engagement in more detail. Nothing more. Cecilia asked Moon, we're going to discuss our engagement in private? Moon calmly responded, Soltetsa, our marriage is a political arrangement orchestrated by His Majesty the Emperor to maintain a stable relationship with my father. I know full well that you have no feelings for me, just as I have none for you. You are bound to your father's wishes, just as I am bound to duty. In truth, I have no desire to continue this forced engagement. However, if we work together, perhaps we can find a respectable way to annul our marriage. Cecilia considered his words for a moment before nodding, comprehension dawning with a small smile. She said, then we should discuss this in private. As she spoke, Moon couldn't help but think to himself, forgive me, Princess Cecilia, for deceiving you. But for the sake of my plans, we need to proceed this way. Without hesitating, Cecilia asked, where is your room? We have no time to waste. We should talk about this as soon as possible. As the grand ball continued, Cecilia suddenly grabbed Moon's hand and pulled him onto the dance floor. In the middle of the waltz, she changed direction abruptly, dragging him toward his quarters. Their sudden departure didn't go unnoticed, attracting the attention of the guests. Among the observers, a dark-haired maid whispered urgently, Mooncell and the princess have left. This is our chance to act. Another maid, looking around cautiously, warned, we need to move fast. Remember, we're in Highland Hurt territory. Meanwhile, inside Moon's room, he turned to Cecilia and asked, would you like something to drink? Cecilia shook her head. I don't drink. Moon picked up a bottle of red wine, pouring a small amount into a glass. Just a little? She firmly refused. Not a drop of alcohol. I won't touch it. As Moon watched, he thought to himself, she rejected the red wine. But the potion is also red. How am I going to get her to drink this? Thinking quickly, he asked, if not alcohol, is there something else you'd prefer? Cecilia considered for a moment. Coffee would be nice. Moon sighed, shaking his head. Unfortunately, the kitchen only has black tea. Moon sighed and said, I'm sorry, Princess Cecilia. I can't fulfill your small desire for coffee. After thinking for a moment, Cecilia replied, if there's no other option, then black tea will have to do. As he led her to the kitchen, he commented confidently, Princess Cecilia, today you will drink the best black tea of your entire life. But for the best tea you will need to wait just 2 minutes. Cecilia watched him work and thought to herself, seeing young Master Moon preparing black tea is strangely satisfying. While preparing the tea, Moon discreetly added a few drops of a potion, thinking 1 drop is enough to put an elephant to sleep. But since Princess Cecilia is the strongest mage of her generation, I should add a little more just to be sure. Suddenly, Cecilia approached and asked, isn't the black tea ready yet? Surprised, Moon quickly turned to face her and replied, give me just 2 minutes, and it will be ready. However, in his moment of surprise, he didn't notice that both potion bottles were open. A considerable amount of both potions ended up falling into the tea. Looking at the tea in horror, Moon thought, asterisk, that was terrifying. Good thing the potion doesn't emit magical fluctuations, or I would have been caught red-handed. Asterisk then, looking at the spilled potion, he felt a pang of regret. Asterisk, I planned to dilute that potion in water to create sleeping pills and sell them. It would have earned me a fortune in gold coins. But now it's all ruined. Asterisk, just when he was lamenting his loss, Cecilia called out to him again. Snapping out of his thoughts, he responded, "Coming," before carefully serving the black tea to her. As she examined the tea, she narrowed her eyes suspiciously and asked, "Young Master Moon, isn't black tea supposed to be black? In fact, it's so red it almost seems to glow." Moon explained that the tea had a deep red color because it was a rare and precious variety known as Big Red Robe, which only grew in the East. Cecilia, growing increasingly suspicious, insisted that Moon drink first. Moon frowned and questioned her reasoning. "Why are you asking me to drink first? It seems like you don't trust me," he said. Cecilia quickly clarified that she wasn't accusing him of tampering with the tea. Instead, she explained that it was basic noble etiquette. Whoever served the tea should be the first to drink. Moon sighed, shaking his head. "No matter what you say, it only proves that you don't believe in me," he responded. Just as he was about to take a sip, Cecilia quickly snatched the cup from his hands. Observing the tea, she commented that his cup looked better than hers and decided to try his first. However, the moment she took the first gulp, she realized something was wrong. Before she could react, her vision blurred, and she fainted. Watching her fall, Moon gave a malicious smile and revealed his true intentions. He had put the potion in both cups, ensuring that even if she tried to trick him, his plan wouldn't fail. Asterisk, it seems the black market vendor wasn't lying about his potion. His quality was truly up to par. Asterisk. However, as he replayed the events of the romance, he noticed something odd. In the original plot, there was no mention of Cecilia abstaining from alcohol, but she had clearly refused when he offered it. This made him think that just like in the original plot, Moon Campbell had also put the potion in her black tea. As the scene unfolded, Moon began to loosen Cecilia's clothes, exposing a bit of her stomach and musing her hair. He then started to take off his own clothes. Seeing Cecilia in such a vulnerable state, Moon murmured to himself, "Mission accomplished. Now it's time for the protagonist to enter the scene and take action." Moon waited patiently for Ariel's arrival to rescue Cecilia, but even after half an hour, she still hadn't appeared. Frustration began to take over as he muttered to himself, realizing that events were not unfolding as in the original plot. In the novel, Ariel rushed in the moment he started to act, but now she wasn't coming. Asterisk, where is she? Why isn't the original plot working? Asterisk, he asked himself, trying to understand the situation. He recalled the details of the romance. According to the original plot, Ariel's clothes had been stained by a severely ill maid in the Duke's mansion. While looking for a place to clean them, she wandered through the mansion and happened to overhear the commotion in Moon's room, which led her to rush in and save Princess Cecilia. Then, a sudden realization hit him. The sick maid in question was none other than Noelle. In the original story, the former Moon Campbell was indifferent to Noelle's condition, failing to act despite noticing her illness. As a result, during the party, her condition worsened, causing her to faint and stain Ariel's clothes. This chain of events caused Ariel to be in the right place at the right time. But now, because of his own kindness, things had changed. This time, he had helped Noelle before her condition worsened, which meant she wasn't at the party to stain Ariel's clothes. And without that incident, Ariel had no reason to wander through the mansion, nor any reason to stumble upon Cecilia and intervene. Visibly shaken, Moon murmured to himself, realizing the gravity of his actions. Asterisk, without knowing it, I changed the plot, and now I think I'm in serious trouble. Asterisk. Lost in his thoughts, he focused on the consequences of his interference, trying to predict what problems would arise. However, before he could reflect further on this, a sudden shift in the atmosphere pulled him back to reality. From across the room, Cecilia stirred. As she regained consciousness, a wave of fury took over, her eyes opening, burning with murderous intent as she fixed her gaze on Moon. Suddenly, the temperature in the room began to plummet. Moon shuddered, confused by the unexpected cold in the middle of summer. He wondered why his room had become so icy without warning. Cecilia approached him. As her icy magic intensified, a blast of frost swept through the room. Seeing Cecilia awake, Moon trembled with fear, panic setting in as he tried to explain the entire situation. But his words failed him when he realized that Cecilia wasn't attacking him. Instead, she seemed unstable, her breathing ragged, and her face flushed. It took him a moment to understand. Because of the high dose of the potion she had consumed, an overwhelming heat coursed through her body. Moon immediately recognized the danger. She's in a bad state, he thought. I have to call a doctor. Just as he turned to leave, Cecilia stopped him, ice forming around her grasp as she took his hand. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. Your body is cold, she murmured. It makes me feel better. Moon's heart raced as she silently pleaded for Ariel to arrive. Asterisk. Where are you? Asterisk, he thought desperately. Asterisk, if this continues, our fake act will soon become something real. Asterisk. Before he could react, Cecilia leaned in and kissed him. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Ariel wandered in search of a restroom. Her friend Leah had accidentally soiled her dress with cake, and Ariel had set out to find a place to clean it. As she passed Moon's room, she hesitated. With the party in full swing, she wondered who could be behind the closed doors. Just as she approached, the head maid, Yane, placed herself in her path. Miss, you cannot go any further, she stated firmly. The area ahead is restricted within the Duke's mansion. Ariel frowned, curious about the sudden warning. Restricted? What kind of place is that? She asked. Yane remained calm and unwavering. I'm afraid I cannot answer that. It is a secret of the Duke's mansion. Ariel's curiosity piqued, but for now, she had no choice but to back down. The closed doors of Moon's room remained a mystery, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something important was happening behind them. Yane noticed that Ariel's clothes were stained with cake and asked politely, Miss, may I be of assistance? Ariel, looking at the mess, responded, I'm looking for a restroom to clean this. Hearing this, Yane reassured her with a gentle smile. If that is the case, I will take care of it. With a simple wave of her hand, she used her magic, making the stains disappear instantly. Oh! Ariel's eyes widened in surprise. Even a maid can use magic in this house, she commented in amazement. This mansion truly lives up to the name of the Grand Duke Campbell's estate. Yane merely responded modestly, I know a little magic. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, by the way, the CC cake that you adore is available in limited quantities at the banquet. If you stay here any longer, you might miss the chance to eat it. Upon mentioning the CC cake, Ariel's expression lit up instantly, her eyes sparkling with joy, and her mouth watered at the thought of it. Any concern about the mystery of the closed room was forgotten as she eagerly headed toward the banquet. Thank you for reminding me, Yane, she called out, running toward the grand hall, now focused only on savoring the beloved CC cake. As Ariel walked away, Yane said goodbye politely, Farewell, Miss Ariel. However, the moment Ariel turned away, Yane's expression darkened. Meanwhile, as Ariel hurried toward the banquet, she murmured to herself, just like that bastard Moon, everything in this mansion seems strange. Her thoughts lingered on the maid who had helped her. Asterisk. She smelled like blood. But that has nothing to do with me. Asterisk, shaking off the unsettling feeling. She continued, Asterisk. Whatever happens in this mansion is none of my business or my friends. Asterisk, her mind then turned to Cecilia, the princess who was now common. Ariel laughed at the idea. Asterisk. Her Highness Cecilia is the strongest mage of our generation. That stupid playboy isn't capable of causing her any trouble. Asterisk, with that, she dismissed all other thoughts. At this moment, nothing else mattered. Nothing was more important than getting the precious CC cake. The scene shifts. The black-haired maid's composed demeanor vanished as she revealed her true intentions. She wasn't just a simple maid. In truth, she was an assassin contracted to eliminate Princess Cecilia. Turning to her subordinate, she asked, "Wasn't Ariel your target at some point?" Her subordinate shook her head. "No, she was never my target. She was my former partner, number 9's target. That's why I have information about her." But in the end, she hesitated before continuing. Despite being up against 2 kingdoms stronger than her, number 9 was still killed by her. The black-haired assassin's eyes narrowed. "So, she's more powerful than she seems." Changing focus, she asked, "How much longer will it take to complete the formation?" Her subordinate let out a frustrated sigh. "It's not easy to break. It was something set up by Leonhardt himself. Creating a breach without alerting him is incredibly difficult. It will obviously take time." The black-haired maid's expression darkened as she issued a warning. "If Moon Camp Bell or Princess Cecilia suddenly appear, our mission will be doomed." Her subordinate gave a slight smile. "I doubt that will happen anytime soon. After all, they're occupied with that." Meanwhile, inside the room, Princess Cecilia was straddling M's body as he lay there, thinking to himself, "Finally, the potion's effect has worn off. If it had lasted 5 more minutes, controlling myself would have been impossible." Remembering how dangerously close he was to losing control, he thought, "I barely managed to push the princess away with all my strength. If I had crossed that line with her, exile wouldn't have been my fate. I would have been utterly destroyed." Now, however, there was no escaping the consequences. Princess Cecilia, with a furious expression, pointed her sword at M's neck. "Say your last words," she demanded. "This is your last chance." M tried to change the conversation, attempting to comfort her, but her anger didn't lessen in the slightest. Taking a step forward, she scoffed, "Even your last words are as disgusting as you are." M knew that if he failed to calm her down, it would be the end for him. "I can't be foolish enough to rely on your luck again. There's no guarantee I'd have another chance to be reborn." Taking a deep breath, he spoke. "There was true love before me, but I didn't cherish it. I never regretted it until I lost it. If God could give me one more chance." Before he could finish, Cecilia lunged at him, swinging her sword. "Even your so-called purest thoughts about me are disgusting," she spat. Despite the attack, M maintained eye contact with her and replied, "It may be disgusting, but it's true. This is my sincere emotion for you." His voice softened as he added, "I truly regret that we never had the chance to really get to know each other." Tears welled up in Cecilia's eyes as she trembled with frustration. "These filthy words, and you dare call them sincerity?" Her voice faltered as she glared at him angrily. You have truly disappointed me. And that's where this story ends for now. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hype this video as much as you can, comment requesting part 2, and consider becoming a member if you want to support the channel. And while you wait for the next episode, watch the video on your screen.